Today, for the very first time, I'm going to be listening to the brand new Damon Albarn album. The nearer the stream, the nearer the fountain, the nearer the fountain, more pure the stream flows. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another album review / reaction here on my channel. If you've never seen any of my videos like this before, know that usually what I do is I take the CD, put it in my CD player, listen to the album for the very first time all the way through from front to back, while giving you all of my thoughts as I'm hearing it for the first time in real time. Today's going to be a little bit different because I'm going to be using my tablet to listen to the album because I do not have a physical copy of this album in CD form yet. I assume that I will be getting it, unless it's terrible, though I highly doubt that's the case. But anyway, we are nearing the end of November now. We are just a few days away from Thanksgiving as I'm recording this. So first of all, happy Thanksgiving to everybody. I'll probably be posting this after Thanksgiving, so I hope you all had a wonderful Thanksgiving. If you're from outside of the United States, I hope you had a great week. And also, Merry Christmas to everybody as we're nearing the height of Christmas season. But anyway, as we're this part of the year, this is the time of year where I try to focus more on buying things for other people, presents and things like that. And I can't get all of the albums that I want right now. And this is definitely one of the albums that has been on my radar since I found out about it earlier this year, but I'm putting my purchasing of the CD on hold for now. But anyway, we will be listening through my tablet using Spotify, and I have the free version of Spotify, so there may be a few ads in there. Don't worry, I will edit everything out, and if you want to listen along with me, I will make it clear where we're at every moment and every step along the way. Speaking of listening along with me, I'd never include any audio from the actual albums in these videos because I don't want to take anything away from the artist, and I don't want to get a copyright strike. I don't know how these channels can get away with posting an entire album on their channels if they're doing it like a stream or something. I'm not sure how to get away with any of that. But anyway, what's been working for me and my channel so far is to just put a link in the description of this video to listen along with me on Spotify. You can choose to listen to it on any music service of your choice, however you like to listen to this album. If you have this album on vinyl or whatever, it might be a little harder to line it up on vinyl. But if you have a copy on CD, whatever, listen to this album along with me, and I think we'll have a great time together. Another thing that I will include in the description of this video is relevant timestamps for the duration of the video. What I'm planning on doing is talking a little bit at the beginning of the video here about my love for Damon Albarn. He is actually one of my musical idols and has been for a very long time since I was in high school, which was actually like 15 years ago, believe it or not. But I'll talk a little bit about Damon Albarn, a little bit about the Gorillaz and Blur, and then we'll listen to the album. And then after that, I will do my sort of album review, if you will, just sort of my overall thoughts on the album. So if you want to skip to any part of that, if you want to skip my talking at the beginning and everything, just skip to the very end to see what I think of the album, feel free to do that. Like I said, timestamps will be in the description of the video, including timestamps to each of the individual songs. If you have a favorite song you'd like to hear my reaction to, feel free to go there. So like I said, I love Damon Albarn, and for many years I have considered him one of my absolute musical idols. I've tried to fill the space around me here with a lot of my Gorillaz and Damon Albarn stuff. I have the entire Gorillaz and Blur catalog here on CD, and I don't know if I have that arranged in such a way that you can see all of them or that they're all there, but basically you can just trust me, they're all there, including, maybe talk about this in a second. But have all this here, and then actually, and I believe all the Blur albums are here as well. But I also have, and these are all the original Blur albums from the years that they were released. I also have this, the Blur 21 box set that they released. I believe it was called 21. When the band turned 21. This is the set that has all of their albums remastered in it, plus some vinyl and one old vinyl and a really awesome book with artwork and pictures and all sorts of things, plus some DVDs. It's amazing. All of the Blur catalog basically remastered. I also have my Gorillaz Rise of the Ogre here. I have a Gorillaz record over here. I have somewhere in all my stuff, which may be in storage, I have a poster. Actually, I found at a garage sale at some point. It was a framed poster, just a poster put in a frame without like matting or anything, very nice, of The Great Escape, Blur's third album, I believe, and actually one of my favorites. So I have like a big poster of that, and then somewhere in storage, I think. But so anyway, I just kind of point all that stuff out to kind of just show how much Damon Albarn has meant to me over the years. I'm ashamed to say that I did not know who Blur was until after the first Gorillaz album came out back in 2001, when I believe at that time I would have been a freshman in high school. And I absolutely fell in love with the debut Gorillaz album, and I had heard the Woohoo song from the Gorillaz, or from Blur, song 2. I had heard that song before, but I didn't connect it in my brain that it was the same vocalist at all. But I just loved the Gorillaz. I loved everything about them. I loved the fact that they were cartoons, and then digging deeper into them, I loved the fact that Damon Albarn and all the artists who worked on it, including Jamie Hewlett, the artist who did the actual art for it, none of it was really ever meant to shine a spotlight on the artists themselves, meaning Jamie and Damon. It was really just meant to be a way to put out music and sort of circumnavigate the music industry machine as it was at the time, and to try to create basically like a fake band. And I love that they tried to do that. You know, the Gorillaz was never a project that was meant to be performed live or anything, even though, you know, I think with every album that Damon has released, they do go on tour and do a few things, have some big shows. I do have, actually, now that I think about it, I have the Gorillaz DVDs over there and the Bananas documentary and stuff like that. So I have all that stuff off camera, but really love the Gorillaz and everything that they stood for musically and also in the music industry, and sort of they're being used to point out some of the flaws in the music industry as well. I really enjoyed all of those aspects to them. And so then, of course, I went back and fell in love with Blur, and they have become one of my absolute most favorite bands that was most prolific in the 90s. As most people on my channel might know, the 90s are like my least favorite decade of music. And I'm slowly over time warming up to a lot of the stuff that was popular in the 90s, but grunge music is not really my thing at all. And artists like Alanis Morissette and things that were hugely popular at the time are just not things that speak to me musically. And I find a lot of that stuff to be somewhat annoying. But like I said, as I'm getting older, I go back and I have found a lot of really cool gems from the 90s as well. But Blur is always a band that I've loved, you know, since I discovered them about 15 years ago or so. So with all that in mind, I have grown up loving music the entire time and sort of always wanting to be in a band, wanting to be a musician. And I can play lots of instruments. I can make my own songs. I have gone into more of a audio recording, audio editing, audio engineering route in terms of my career. But I have worked on music. I've worked on things over the years. And in all of that, whether I'm creating something, you know, using is it as inspiration for working on other people's projects, Damon Albarn and his musical projects have always been a very big inspiration to me. You know, even from the sort of early hip hop influences on some of the middle Blur albums to all sorts of cool things that he's done with the Gorillaz. So that's why I say that Damon Albarn is sort of one of my biggest musical idols, because I really admire everything he's done in the music industry. Even recently, when we're talking about the more recent Gorillaz albums, like the one that just came out, I believe, earlier this year, Song Machine. Did this come out this year or was it last year? This was last year. Song Machine last year. I'm getting everything mixed up in my head because I been doing reactions now for over a year. I started in September of last year, but Song Machine was incredibly disappointing to me, kind of like the last Gorillaz album as well, because, you know, and I don't really hold it against Damon. I think what he's doing is, with Gorillaz at least specifically, he is continuing to push music forward, and he is trying to make music that appeals to the very current generation. He is trying to make modern music for the modern listener. And I think what's happening is, in the music industry, trending wise, music is sort of heading down a path that I myself particularly do not care about. And that is songs that are for much people with much shorter attention spans. On this album, there are almost no discernible choruses whatsoever throughout the albums. There are moments where there's rapping and then there's a sung part, which could be a chorus, but in very few of the songs are there ever any repeated parts. It really just to me seems like a song where there's sort of a cool sounding part, followed by a cool sounding part, followed by a cool sounding part, and then the song's over. And then the next song begins and it's just a cool part, followed by a cool part, followed by a cool part. And to me, what happens when you have songs structured like that, you get lost in the shuffle of what the album is trying to do. And it's very hard to discern any song from the next. And to me personally, I really enjoy it when songs are structured much more traditionally, meaning ABA style. So I like it when a song has a little bit of an intro and then verse 1, chorus, verse 2, chorus 2, bridge, chorus 3, outro, and out. There are many fantastic songs that don't have that structuring, but for me personally, that is what I gravitate towards the most. And as I've been doing my reactions to albums this year here on my channel, if you've watched some of my other videos, you know my frustrations can come up when a song just has two parts, basically a verse and a chorus, verse, chorus, and the song is done. And I really do not like it when music is structured that way. And this Gorillaz album, like I said, really started to put those thoughts into my head as to why I wanted to try to articulate for my channel why I dislike that so much. And the reason that I came up with is I want every individual song to feel like its own story. I want a beginning, a middle, and an end. And in order for that to be a satisfying song, I want there to be a verse and a chorus and then some other part of music where you can go away from the path, if you will, and then come back to what you know at the end by having the chorus repeat again and then letting the song end. And when you don't do that, I feel like you're losing some of the satisfaction and also the feeling of resolve. Now, I also understand that artists have total liberty to make whatever kind of a song they want, and they can choose to end their song in a dissonant way, so there is no feeling of resolve, and that can totally add to the overall feeling of the song. Like, I get all that, but for me personally, I want the songs to have that sort of resolution, and I feel like going back to a chorus, ending the song on a chorus, or at least a part of the song that's familiar to you, is where you get that. So the reason I bring up all that is to say I have been disappointed with the last few Gorillaz albums because, like I said, they're trending away from music that I think is for me. Damon is making music for the modern generation. So with all that said, I just wanted to highlight some of his actual solo albums so I can kind of try to get my head wrapped around what I think this album may be, which, for the record, I have heard not a second, not a crumb, not seen a Facebook ad as I scrolled by. I have seen nothing of this album. I've heard not a drop. So I'm assuming this album is going to be very similar to his other solo album, Everyday Robots. I'm expecting this album to be sort of more down-tempo, and I'm expecting it to be a lot more intimate feeling than something like the Gorillaz would. I expect every song to have a breathiness to it and to have a production that's very crisp and clean, but I also expect there to be moments of silence. I expect the songs to have patience. And one of the reasons I expect that is because if Damon is making modern music for the modern listener with the Gorillaz, he can get all of that out of his system. Not that it's like a purge or anything, like he's trying to get rid of the bad stuff, but he can get all of that out of his system, and he can save his more intimate and more traditionally structured songs, if they are more traditionally structured, as I hope they are, for his solo project, which is a lot more acoustic-based, I believe. I also have, just to point out here, his Monkey project, which is sort of the sort of opera type of thing, the stage play, I believe it was. This is less of an album and more of a soundtrack, so I don't listen to this very often. It's not my favorite pieces of his work. I also have an unopened copy of The Good, the Bad, and the Queen. I do have an open copy somewhere. I think it's in this stack. But The Good, the Bad, and the Queen was an album that I really wanted to enjoy, but didn't really get into very much. I've only been able to listen to it all the way through a couple times without sort of getting bored halfway through. So The Good, the Bad, and the Queen is not necessarily something that really impressed me in terms of his work outside of Gorillaz and Blur. And then we have the Dr. D album, which is also a little bit more of a soundtrack, but something that I feel is a lot more close sonically to Everyday Robots, which, as I said, is what I feel the nearer the fountain, more close, more pure the stream flows is going to sound like. So I hope that makes sense. Now I'm starting to get a dry mouth, so I'm going to go grab a drink. And then when I get back, we will listen to the album. But just give me 1 second. I'll be right back. Hold on. Okay, I am back. And I brought what may appear blue, and is blue, but it's a little... I had a tiny bit of blue, Hawaiian blue punch in the bottom of my glass that I put in the freezer, because I always freeze a little bit of the last beverage I had to get a nice little chunk of ice on the bottom that has some flavor. Anyway, it wasn't fully melted, so I mixed in there a little bit of Walmart carbonated water, the cherry vanilla flavor. Anyway, you don't care about that, but that's what I'm drinking. And I also was reminded, before we get started, I just wanted to point one other thing out. As I mentioned in my last video, I've been sort of in the process of renovating sort of the area where I film my videos, and I'm still trying to figure everything out. However, I wanted to get the Christmas tree here that my mom helped me set up. I wanted to get the Christmas tree in the video, and I wanted to get some stuff behind me and the records on the wall. While we've been cleaning out the basement, and I found something that I did not know we had. And that was this painting right here, which I have behind me. And I wanted to have it in the video, at least in one video, because this is a painting that I found out my grandmother painted in 1980. It says down here, that would be 6 years before I was born. She painted this in 1980. I had no clue that she ever even tried to paint. And when I knew her in my life, she was never a very creative or artistic person, though she did do quilting, which I guess is very creative. And there's a lot of artistic license in that as well. But I just wanted to showcase this painting. It's very bent, so I may try to unbend it over time, but I just wanted to show this here to say, look at this cool painting that my grandma painted. She passed away last March or April, I believe, due to completely un-coronavirus-related things. And so I just thought it was special when we found that, and I wanted to show that, have it in the background, especially because it's kind of like a country house, the type of thing I feel like Damon Albarn and Blur would sing about, that sort of country house. Maybe not necessarily always in the best of mentions, but... Okay, so we're going to get to the actual album. Hopefully I didn't talk too long. While I'm getting my headphones on, I will say this extra cable that I have attached to my headphones here reverses the stereo image. I wasn't aware of that when I purchased them earlier this year, but if I say something is on the left and I'm not thinking about it ahead of time, it may actually be on the right for you, but I'll try to keep that in mind and be aware of that while we're recording. So just something, like I said, that I will try to keep in mind. So, this is Damon Albarn. The nearer the fountain, more pure the stream flows. Looks like we have, 11 songs, 39 minutes, 50 seconds. It's a special thing when we get new Damon Albarn music, especially Damon Albarn music that's not Gorillaz. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. So, all right, I'm hitting play. I will probably get an ad, and we'll see what happens. Okay, here we go. Track 1 starting now. I'm so excited for this. I don't know what to expect. Okay, sounds like we have a violin. Turn it up a little. Violin on the left. Some sort of like electronic pulsy sound. Sort of, I guess for you it'd be up to the right. Pulsy sounds, some more like sort of electronic dings, if you will. Strings sort of feel like coming in a little bit more. Ooh. Ooh. Ooh, I like that off to the side. There's that ooh kind of in there. Very nice. Everything has a sense of building so far a little bit. His vocals, very nice, very clear, right in the middle. A lot of nice low frequencies in his voice. I feel like as he's getting older, his lower voice is getting a little bit more pronounced, his lower frequencies. Now that sound in the back, it almost sounds like a whale or some sort of a aquatic animal. But it's a sound that doesn't belong with everything else that's happening because it's such a synthetic sounding sound, which is very interesting. It creates a nice juxtaposition. Now it does fit sonically, mix-wise, everything is fitting very beautifully. You have some acoustic guitar off to be your left a little bit. Just mono panned a little bit to the left. Very nice. Female vocal. Oh, that's beautiful. I was sort of expecting this album, I think, to be a little bit more somber. I'm not sure how the pandemic affected everyone. So I don't know how much that specifically impacted the writing of these songs or the recording of these songs even. But it's something I'm going to keep in mind as we listen. A lot of Damon Albarn's, Everyday Robots was a pretty somber album overall. There was, what is it, Mr. Jimbo? Mr. Tembo, the song about the elephant, Damon has all sorts of influences from all over the world, and he does a lot of stuff with sort of indigenous or African style percussive rhythmic music and things like that. And it's interesting to see how he incorporates those different elements from all over the world, including a lot of Asian influence as well. So it's interesting to see how those things all can come together. This is beautiful so far. No drums, but if you'll notice, there are, not necessarily percussive, but there are some bells. It almost sounds like things creaking every now and then, which could be in the acoustic guitar track or some sort of a string track or something, just someone moved their chair or something to create a little bit of a sound, and that was left in to give everything a feeling of sort of being in a room and having it have a bit of a live feel to it. Love the female vocals, everything being very subtle, but building and creating this very nice wall of sound. Bass guitar in there too. Very round bass sound, probably just plucked with fingers. Very lightly. Everything is being played very lightly. Beautiful. He had a lot of vibrato there at the end of the phrase, the word fountain. A lot of vibrato, but then the more pure the stream, he had much more of a clear note. Okay, I didn't notice very much of a chorus there whatsoever. Maybe it was there and I just wasn't listening to the lyrics that much, but I didn't hear too many repeating parts at all. Now we have some ocean sound. I will say the cover of the album as well. Amazing, just the picture of the rock on the beach. I'll put it back up over here. I'm sure I showed it at the beginning of the video, but I'll put it back up here right now so you can just see it. That gives you obviously a feeling of being at the beach. Okay, so now the waves are fading out, and we have a drum beat from Damon is famous for using those sort of like Casio beats, or almost like pre-programmed sounding. He probably makes them himself, but pre-programmed sort of keyboard beats. There's an interesting sort of ping-pongy delay almost, though it's not ping-ponging stereo. Sort of a delay, like a slap-back delay on some of those percussive elements. Interesting. Bass, very cool. Very interesting. I'm listening to the bass right now. That low note, boom, is a bass, but then there's sort of a doom, 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 doom. And those doom dooms sound like some sort of a drum or percussive instrument, but they're very close to the frequency of the bass. So it sounds almost like the bass is going boom, 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 boom. And they may be doing that, but it sounds like there's a percussive instrument that's playing along with the bass. Very interesting. Okay, we have some guitar now off to the side a little. Electric guitar. This is track 2, by the way, the Cormorant. Piano now. Ooh, tremolo guitar. Love that. Very, very close sounding vocals. You're getting a lot of the throatiness of his voice, which is just magnificent. The stopping and starting of the beat, if you will, very interesting and really makes you focus in on the different parts of the song we've had so far. The instrumentation, obviously very tasty. I assume Damon is the one playing the piano. That was cool. Very nice. I thought I heard a little bit of like a flute or some sort of a... But I think what I was hearing was actually just piano. Now I'm definitely hearing piano. Ooh, really interesting sound there on the far right. The shaker going. Some speaking. The electric guitar, very interesting there. Interesting. So far, both songs have had sort of several through lines, like the electric guitar there, the acoustic guitar, the first track, piano in this song. The song fading out, which is worthless. Fading out is never acceptable in any circumstance. Both songs, though, had sort of a through line, and then it was just sort of like this waviness of different instruments coming in and coming out. Long, drawn-out notes. No real moments of silence. A few moments there, though, where everything went out, like I said. Okay. Whoa. So we got some bass, possibly synth bass, possibly played bass. Nice drum beat, just panned right to the middle. Probably just a loop, I assume. We have a looped repeating part in the back, sort of like an electronic... Ooh. Ooh, that guitar. Ooh, oh, that might be... Saxophones. Baritone saxophones. Very cool. I couldn't tell what that was at first. If it was like a chuggy guitar, or it could have been like a distorted cello or upright bass. Okay, everything goes away now. Very nice. Now we have the drum beat come back in, but the kick is not as pronounced at all. Well, there really isn't a kick. Yeah, the kick is back now. So this is the first of these 3 songs. This is the only one so far that has had multiple overdubs of Damon's vocals. At least that was very noticeable. That first track could have had a few oohs and ahs in the background, along with the extra female vocal. But this song is a lot more structured normally, I would feel. Interesting. Very simple part there on the saxophones. I assume it might be a combination of saxophones, guitar. Very cool, though. Very simple, but just pushing the song forward. Along with the drum beat. And the piano. Nice whispers there. Whispers. I'm done with my beverage already on track 3. Nice. Some classical sounding piano here at the end. So there may have been a chorus there, but it was hard to tell. So far, I'm going to say no discernible choruses on any of the 3 songs we've heard so far. This is Combustion. Starting with very ominous sort of tones. Very dissonant sort of notes together. Almost some like some trumpet or something in there, just playing very lightly. Maybe a saxophone from the previous track. The saxophones are back. Like a baritone sax or a bass sax. I don't know if that's even a thing. Ooh. Maybe this is just an instrumental track, but that's very cool. Very ominous. Ooh, very weird. Building on the sides. I'm going to take this moment to mention that a saxophone is my least favorite instrument on the planet. And possibly the most annoying sounding instrument as well. We have some 2 tracks of electric guitar strumming, one on the left, one on the right. I assume that that's sort of a keyboard. We have a weird sort of almost sort of like an oscillating synth frequency going nuts in the middle. Constantly creating some movement. And then the piano. Wow, this is very fun and interesting to listen to. This is all things that is hard to sort of react to, though, because this is the kind of thing that I feel like you need multiple listens to really grasp kind of what's going on. It is interesting to react to it, though, because it is so, you know, like this is more like a soundtrack, like I said, like the Dr. D or the Monkey stuff. Something that feels like it should have almost a visual component with it. Though it's definitely got to be fun making stuff like that. So that was just a little interlude track. Track 4. Interesting. So now we're going to be on track 5, I believe, right now. This is Daft Waiter. Waiter as in like waiting in the water. Okay, some synth pads sort of being faded in. Nice piano. Very, very cool the way that the organic, more acoustic sounds are meshing with the synthetic sounds. Everything, all the synthetic sounds have reverb and everything to sort of put it in a space, so it all feels like it's coming from the same place, which is very nice. Vocals very intimate in the middle, again, reminiscent of how the first track sounded. Nice acoustic guitar. Nice strings there. I feel like those strings are synthetic strings. The piano's still going, kind of being the driving force of this song. Electric guitar with tremolo off to my left, your right. This song has a bit of a plodding feel to it. You really feel like you're falling till you hit that downbeat when you kind of bounce up again. Now there we get a little bit of a change. Whoa, that sound almost like scraping something against some metal there. Some overdubs from Damon there. Interesting. Some organ building. Okay, now we have some interesting, like, brass. Very low pass filtered. That sounds like a horn, actually. Like honking some sort of a horn. Getting faster. Interesting. Okay, no chorus on that song either. So we're on track 5, I believe now. No discernible chorus thus far on this album. I'm pretty sure I can already tell that this album was not made for me. I feel like a lot of this, okay, Darkness to Light right now. Saxophone right away. Oh boy. He's just throwing everything at me that I don't particularly care for. Wow, there's like a running water in there. That's very nice. Getting a bit of the sort of trip-hop feel to some of this, which is very nice, minus the sort of distorted hip-hop drums, which gave a lot of the trip-hop, when it was created in the early to mid-90s, their sort of distinctive feel. Like I said, he's throwing a lot at me that I don't care for, but I can't deny that this is definitely art. This music is definitely high-quality art. And maybe I just don't get it or understand it, but like I said, when I listen to a song, I want there to be repeatable parts. I want there to be something maybe I could sing along with, and I know that seems like it's a very shallow thing, and maybe it is. Musically, maybe I am an incredibly shallow musical person. You know, I definitely love a lot of pop music and things, all sorts of intricate, crazy metal music and electronic music and things too, but, you know, so far, I'm really not liking very much of this. I am appreciating how fantastic it was recorded and edited, but for the songs being put together they were, to sit and listen to this and enjoy my experience, I don't know if I would ever come to that. So far, it's felt a lot more close to classical music than it would to modern pop music, in that it's just sort of these long the last few minutes have been around 3.5 minutes. The first 2 songs were longer, like 5-minute long songs that weren't really any repeating parts. Sorry, I'm enjoying what I'm hearing, and I don't want to go on too long. I'll save a lot of my thoughts overall for the end. That bass in the middle, very nice. Very round with some, if not reverb, has a bit of a longer tail to it, so it feels like it's not cutting off abruptly with the fast transient, but allowing itself to taper off a little. And then we have the claps, like the synthetic claps on this, which is nice. Damon singing his butt off like he always does with his very specific style of singing. Very cool. Then we have some nice synths, just straight up synths in there. Very nice. He's playing them on the keyboard. You can definitely tell it's not just something that was programmed. Actually playing. And then we have some piano in there as well, I hear. Nice, sort of like sounded almost like a banjo, but I assume it's probably acoustic guitar there. I love that sound. It was either record static or it sounded like water at the beginning of the song. Okay, this is the track Esja, or Isja. I don't know how to pronounce that. Esja, maybe. Maybe he'll say it. Again, with this sort of like repeating synthetic thing happening, this oscillating thing that's just repeating on a loop to create sort of a rhythmic. I hear some like bongos or congos in it. And there's things off to the side. I hear like little background noises now. Very nice. Then the strings, which are both doing sort of their own individual thing. So the ear is being drawn to the left and the right, left and the right. Unless there's just one string playing and there's a long delay on the other side. Which could be what it is. Again, this just is instrumental, and it just feels like a song that should be in the soundtrack of a movie. Something that should be behind something else to give context. And maybe that's where it's all just going over my head. And that's where I also sort of liken it to classical music as well. I'm not a big fan of classical music. The recording studio that I used to work at, we would record the Omaha Symphony when they would perform these very long classical pieces. Sometimes one piece would be the entire night, 3-4 hours long. And it was amazing to sit there and see the musicians play and to hear it with the microphones we were using to record and to feel everything. It was amazing. But to try to listen to it and get something from it and go beyond the sort of appreciation for the musicality, the technicality, I just never really felt it that much. There were certain songs and composers that I enjoyed more than others, but as I sit here and I listen to this, it's not enjoyable to me. And maybe it's not meant to be enjoyable. Maybe this is supposed to be a dissonant piece. But so far it's sitting in a collection of songs that are not meant for me. I'll just say that. And this song has been very simple the whole time. Just this sort of like high frequency strings playing, that congo or bongo drum playing just constantly the whole time. And then that that's fading out now. And we have the ocean fading in. So this is definitely inspired, it feels like, about the ocean and the coast. And living in Nebraska in the middle of the United States, 500 miles away from the nearest coast, definitely hard for me to, relate to that in any sort of personal way. But definitely cool. Now we're just having sort of the waves continue on into the Tower of Montevideo. The Tower of Montevideo. Okay. Ooh, interesting. Those like warbly, that warbliness. Very cool, because you have like a pure, almost like bell tone, and then it's getting like warbled and very interesting. And on top of that, you have that instrument. I'm not sure what it is. More saxophones again, coming in with the drum beat. Electric guitar off to the side. On the other side, I was trying to debate what that is. It could have been an electric guitar as well. It almost sounds like a bell patch or something being played on a keyboard. Could be some sort of a slightly distorted patch of some kind or other. And then the doubled saxophones, maybe even quadrupled saxophones. Ooh. Oh, shoot. I accidentally just restarted the song. Oh, that's awful. And I didn't see where I was either. Well, that's the first time I've ever done this in one of these videos. Just royally screwed it up. All right, I'm going to skip to 2 minutes exactly right now. I got some saxophones going. Wow, that's awful. Terrible disrespect to the music. I apologize. If anyone was listening along with me, I am so sorry. If nobody ever watches this video, or if they do, you're not listening along with me, you can probably tell that I'm not digging this that much, but I was just trying to look at all of the songs as a whole and then click on the song I was listening to bring back up the picture of the album so I could see the time we're in and the time we have left. But instead it restarted the song, so very sorry. We're back to that same sort of drum sound that he's had throughout the album pretty much, other than the played bongos or congos. They're interesting, his warble there on his voice. More saxophone with the... And the song is fading out now. Okay, we're coming up on the next track, right? Oh, we have our ad now. Okay, Giraffe Trumpet C. We had some ads there, and I very strongly considered just shutting the album off and saying, hey, not for me. But I don't want to do that. I want to listen to the whole thing, especially when I look down and see that this track is only 1:51 long. I can get through that. Also, I did just have an ad that was another 30-minute ad, so we'll be able to get through without any more ads. And hopefully I don't screw it up by hitting the wrong song again. Piano. Nice. Very nice sounding piano. With just a low tone still going. Could be a bass, like a fretless bass almost, but probably a synth. Sounds like a fretless bass. Could be a fretless bass patch. Ooh. Very cool. A lot of very interesting and dissonant things working together. You know, there's a little bit of like a circusy, carnival-y feel to some of this. There's a lot of dissonant notes and things being played. Lots of, like the cascading rhythms and melodies. What do you call that? Okay, Polaris. Let's check. This is the penultimate song on the album. Starting off with the saxophones, just doing a warbling. Whoa, 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 whoa. Oh, now they added another note. And that's fading out. Okay. Now we got some plastic beach sounding stuff going on here. Nice little organ. The other side, I hear some birds. So this has a bit more of an island feel to it. Certainly happier sounding. His voice here, as I feel, still feels intimate, but there's more effects on it. It's got a little bit more reverb, a little bit of a delay on it as well. And what that does is it feels less intimate and more like it's fitting into the pocket of a mix and being a part of the mix as a whole, rather than sitting on top of the mix being the focal point, which a lot of the sort of slower songs on this album have felt that way. And I think both are very, very done very well. And I wouldn't necessarily say I like one over the other. A lot more vocal overdubs here. The background, it's almost like he recorded a bit of like a chorus part, but there's sort of like a delay or something on it to give it this sort of like interesting feel there. Very interesting feel. Nice. Very background. Sounds like it's very far from the mic there. Saxophones are back. Our good old friend, the saxophone. We have a repeating chorus here. That's nice. And I'm sure throughout the album there have been other parts that have repeated. It's just a little bit harder to tell. I love the background vocals here, the way he recorded it, and that it's not very compressed. So you really get that pop when they come in, and then it kind of goes back out, and it's nice. It gave it a feeling of being wavy, because the part that was going over top of it was a little bit more consistent. Very interesting feel there. All right, we're going to be going into the final song on the album here in about 10 seconds. 3, 2, 1. Now, Particles. Sounds like some water of some kind. Little Rhodes sort of sounding organ there. Rhodes piano. I'm just listening. Okay, there we have it. The nearer the fountain, more pure the stream flows. By Damon Albarn. Okay. If you skipped to the end of the video here without watching any of my reaction there, I will start with this. Recording, 10 out of 10. Editing, mixing, 10 out of 10. Performance, 10 out of 10. My overall enjoyment of the album, 2 out of 10, I would say. Maybe 1.5. It didn't offend me, but I really did not enjoy really any of that. So let's break that down a little bit here. So first, let's talk about the positives to me. And I do, okay. The recording was fantastic. Everything was very close recorded, I feel, and very intimately recorded with the vocals, the saxophone, the violins, the piano. If it was a real piano, they can do they have some really great sounding patches for like a digital piano that you can just play on an electric keyboard. But it sounded like a real piano to me, so I'm just going to call it an acoustic sort of grand piano recording, the piano. All of that was recorded very well, and I feel that the exact right amount of reverb or room sound was added to it after the fact to make everything feel like it fit very nicely with all of the other sounds. Now, even harder to do than that is taking all these synthetic sounds, these different synth parts, these repeated sort of oscillated tones or repeated frequencies, or even using the sound effects like they had in the last song there, or the water waves crashing against the ocean shore, or water just in general, or it sounded like there was almost like water dripping in one of the songs. I kind of think water was maybe the sort of one of the through points there, which would make sense since the album is called The Nearer the Stream, More Pure the Water, or the nearer the fountain, the more pure the stream flows. Very interesting. And I think done very well. The mixing was fantastic. The amount of reverb and everything on those synthetically created, and there's different ways you can do that. You could record a very dry sounding synth part and then add reverb to it. Or if Damon had a reverb unit or something that was a physical piece of gear that he really likes to use, he could have put that in the studio and then they could have run all of the different sounds through that. And that may sound like it's sort of the same process, but there's different ways you could do that. And if those sort of sounds were recorded, if you take your keyboard and you run it out of the keyboard into a little reverb unit and then from the reverb unit into the board and record it like that, you're recording it with the reverb on it. And if you do that and use the same little reverb unit for everything, it can all feel like it was recorded in the same space and have that same tone of room, that same sort of room tone. The other way to do it, like I mentioned earlier, the first way would be you just record everything sort of separately and try to keep everything as dry as possible. And then you can either add this, say like everything on this song has the same amount of reverb, and it's essentially all the sounds are being sent to sort of like a digital room. And then you can place them in the room, the hypothetical room, and then they create their sounds from their stereo perspectives, but it's all going into the same reverb space. And that's another way to sort of do that. Or you can individually put its own reverb on everything individually after the fact. I'm not exactly sure how this was done. If I had to guess, I would say probably a lot of it was recorded dry and then there was reverb added after the fact. But the mixing was fantastic, done perfectly. There was a lot of sort of like almost avant-garde sounding, progressive sounding like runs of instruments and things that were happening to feel chaotic. And they were always a little bit farther to the back and off to the sides. And then that sort of allowed the sort of more through points, the longer drawn out string notes or those long repetitive, organ sounds or looped sounds. Those sort of were the through point that you could latch onto to keep yourself on the path. And then there were sort of crazy things maybe happening off to the sides, metaphorically there. Damon's vocals were great. I think that I maybe only paid attention to like 4 or 5 words he said the entire time. If you're familiar with my channel, you'll know I definitely tend not to focus on lyrics at all. And I absolutely love Damon's English accent. Some of my music friends from throughout the years, when I've tried to share some of the Blur or Gorillaz or even his own solo stuff, when I've tried to share that with people, sometimes the very thick British accent can turn some people off. And I've always loved that about his music. I think that's sort of an endearing part of the way he's always done everything that I've heard him do. And for me personally, I listen to music in other languages all the time that I don't speak a word of. Lots of German bands, a lot of Norwegian bands that I like a lot as well, some Japanese bands. And it never bothers me that I don't understand the lyrics. I just sort of use that as an excuse to not have to even try to relate. Just think of the lyric, the vocal line as another piece, another instrument, another piece to the puzzle, if you will. So that's kind of what I did with this in this regard, and I didn't really focus on his lyrics at all. His singing was fantastic the whole time, very intimate sounding. There were many moments where he was singing, and it felt like he was singing so quietly and so close to the mic that it was hard for him to even hold those notes as long as he was supposed to, and then that was where sort of like a bit of a warbly coming in and out of the note came through. But what happened was that fit with the tone of what was happening. So I think all that stuff is great. I just absolutely did not connect with any of this at all. And I think that I'm not going to sit here and say this is a bad album because it clearly wasn't a bad album. What I will do is sit here and say that this album, just what I said at the beginning of this, Damon Albarn is no longer making music for me. He is moving beyond the music that I like that he has given me and into a area of music that just no longer appeals to me really whatsoever. For me personally, as I said at the beginning of the video, I want the songs to be structured normally. And I didn't know that they weren't going to be. The reason I was explaining all of the song structuring and my preferences for that at the beginning of this video was because that was what I've disliked about the most recent Gorillaz albums. I did not expect that to follow suit here. In my paying attention to it the way I was while I was listening, only one song, the penultimate song on the album, had a song that I could tangibly feel as a repeating chorus. And it only did it twice, and then the song faded out. The rest of the songs to me just seemed like long part, and then it was over. Long part, then it was over. So it was a little different from the Gorillaz in the fact that the Gorillaz just felt like it was basically like a 45-second song attached to another 45-second song attached to another 45-second song as one track. Then you have another 45-second, 45-second, and then that's how you get the songs. This felt like a big, long sort of barfing of this slow, emotional, intimate sound for however long, and then there was some sound effects would come in and come out at the end and then transition into the next song, which was the same thing. Slow, drawn out, emotional barfing and I say barf, that's probably a terrible word to use. It felt like a block. It just felt totally the same to me the whole way through. And, I'm sure a lot of the music that I like, metal music and whatnot, to people who don't listen to metal, that is exactly what that would feel like. So totally, I want to say I don't think this is a bad album whatsoever. But for me and my personal taste in music, this is almost as far as possible as you could get from the music that I like. I mentioned that saxophones are my least favorite instrument by far. I do not like the way a saxophone sounds at all. I think it can be used to great effect in certain songs. I think it's really great. And in this regard, the way the saxophone was done on this album, on some of the songs, really cool. Being used as sort of more like a rhythmic, almost like a bass line or something. Very cool. But then the couple songs where he was just sort of like riffing on the saxophone, just like free jazzing on the saxophone. I don't need that. So the saxophones were disappointing to me. The fact that several of the songs just faded out, almost any song that had like a drum beat in it, it wasn't a drum beat, a person playing the drums. It was a drum loop, which is cool. I love hip hop music. I like trip hop music. The drum beat the song would just fade out at the end. I cannot stand fading a song out. I think it's worthless every time. It is not an artistic choice that I could ever get behind. No fade outs. So that was disappointing to me. I think that the first song was really cool and it had the backing female vocals and I got excited about what it could be. And then the song was over and I was like, I don't know if I cared for that. And then the second song and the third song, I was like, I don't know. And then by the fourth song, I realized that this just wasn't for me. It just isn't for me at all in any regard, really. So on one hand, I'm super, super disappointed. However, when I think about it, which I was thinking about it the whole time there, once I realized I didn't like the album, I would feel incredibly selfish if I thought that I appreciate all of the music that this man has given me thus far. And like I said, this man, I consider him to be one of my musical idols. And he, I believe he has just reached a point in his life where he no longer wants to make music the way that he had been doing it on his 20 however many albums that he's done so far. And he just wants to move on and make more sort of like classical music, I believe. Well, with the Gorillaz stuff, but less traditionally structured music, I guess I could say. And so I just, I think another thing with this album that we just listened to, the nearer the fountain, more pure the stream flows, the stream, or more pure the stream flows. It's probably meant to be listened to as one singular piece of music. And that's why the fading in and out of the songs with the sound effects and things sort of link everything together. But I don't think even if I listened to this album with that in mind, which I was trying to there to try to see if I could get into it a little bit more, I don't think I would enjoy it. So rather than sit here and try to talk about how great the recording was and how I basically hate the songs on the album, I'm just going to say that, like I've already said now multiple times, this album was not made for me. That's okay. If you like this album, I think that's great. I think it's obvious by everything I have here, and I'm not trying to hide behind my physical possessions, but I think it's obvious by everything I have here and what I've said that I truly love this man and his music, and I appreciate everything that he's done. But I also can sit here and say that he has now, the last 3 or 4 albums basically that he has done, the last 2 for sure, because I didn't really care for the Now with the Gorillaz and the one with Moments, which one? Humans. And then The Fall, which wasn't really a full album, but The Fall, Humans, the Now, and Song Machine, plus the one we just listened to for his solo album, The Nearer the Fountain, More Pure the Stream Flows. That's 5 albums in a row that I just do not care for, really. And so I think it may be, that I have to wait for the point in time, if it ever comes to him, that Damon Albarn starts to feel nostalgic about the older music that he's made, or maybe another project that he joins at some point that is a little bit more traditionally structured. I just have to wait for that, and that's fine. I want him to keep making the music that he wants to make so that he can feel fulfilled creatively. And I'm not the sort of selfish person that wants him to just make the kind of music that I want. I wish he would. And am I disappointed in this album? Yes, incredibly so. I wanted it to be my number 1 album of the year. And instead it wouldn't even be it's at the bottom probably. I've heard a couple albums that weren't the greatest, but I haven't heard anything that was really bad. And I definitely, like I said, I don't think this album is bad, but it is not near anything that I liked. So I know that's super negative, and I'm really bummed, like I said, because I like him so much, and I feel like I'm sort of sitting here trying to make excuses for it, but like I said, at the end of the day, this is not for me, and I'm not going to feel sorry for disliking music that I just really don't care for. So rather than blather on anymore, I'll just end the video and say thank you very much for watching. I have a lot of other videos that I need to try to do in the coming weeks so I can make my list. But I'll be working on those. And the last video I just recorded ended up being my number 1 album of the year. I'm pretty sure. I still have some more things to listen to, so it could get knocked down, but I think that's highly unlikely. So check out my channel if you want to go see the most recent video I did before this one, and you'll see what my number 1 album of the year is probably going to be. But until next time, like I said, thank you very much for watching, and go share this album with someone that you think might like it other than me. Thank you very much. Bye.